having that middle layer where I can store and aggregate master data and move it where it needs to go is just critical for companies. We have mature iPaaS solutions now. We have, robust CRM solutions. We have robust marketing automation solutions. We have PIM. I think that's where agility really comes into play.
So this is a fun one to do. I feel like every week that I've been doing this, I say this is going to be a fun one to do, but I'm looking forward to this. Randy Higgins, we've known each other for a long time, and you've been a long-term, true B2B e-commerce guy in the ecosystem all the way back to when we were doing Hybris and Acuity Group. And I would love to kind of hear, intro to Brad to hear what brought you into this space, Randy. How did you and Brad meet? You guys are together at Domaine now, and kind of want to hear some of the story here.
Yeah, no, that sounds great, Justin. I mean, I think unfortunately we're pushing close to 20 years working in this space at this point in time. And
my daughter's 25. My oldest daughter's 25. Like
mine too.
Actually, before you get in, here's a crazy thought. So this is actually what I was talking to my kids about. Like, guys, in your 20s, you don't like the career that I had wasn't born until I was 32. I'm 50, right? 18 years ago is when I started. Like, this didn't exist. I mean, it existed, but it didn't really exist until I was 32 years old. So when you're 20, it's like you don't have to figure any of this stuff out. Like, the things that are in front of you, you just don't know what you're going to fall into and what's going to be even available in 10 years from now. So don't worry about
100%. 100%.
Yeah. It is incredible. Yeah, my kids have grown up with me in this consulting space, and lots of career pivots, as you said, along the way, Justin. I think threads that I've seen as consistent though along the way, having a good strategy and understanding data. Those are, so I started out back in the day at Anderson Consulting before it was even Accenture. And I got into early days of data warehousing actually in the industrial space. And that was what ultimately led me to this digital space, was that it was so rich in the ability to capture data. And already being in the industry, it was a natural leap over to e-commerce and digital marketing and all things from a B2B perspective. But to your earlier comment, over the course of 20 years, I mean, really worked at Acuity Group, leading the strategy and marketing team there, and worked on some of the biggest early days e-commerce, B2B e-commerce implementations, and I'll say programs, the at Granger's and the Air Gases, and some really large manufacturers as well. And I think that's probably where our paths first crossed when you were evangelizing for Oracle, right?
When did you start at Acuity?
I started working with Acuity in about 2007. So
okay.
Yeah, we were still fully partnered with, both Oracle, and Hybris hadn't even moved into
That's right.
to the US space yet.
Yeah.
So
I came into Endeca in 2009.
yeah.
And that's because I was at Rosetta.
Mhm.
I was at Rosetta before that. And then I came into Endeca and came into the software space for the first time in 2009. And then we started working directly. How old was Acuity? Like, when did Acuity get started? Do you remember?
Acuity started right coming out of the .com bubble. So
Like
probably
2001?
2001
Okay.
time frame. But they had been focused primarily on, e-commerce implementations on Blue Martini and some of
That's
those
right,
old
Blue Martini.
crazy platforms for some of the retailers. And then, we started to expand into these transformational programs, which, as you know, all these B2B companies need transformation consultants, not just systems integrators. So
Yeah.
that was really when I came in and expanded some of the offerings there. But yeah, pretty pretty fascinating history when you think about it, and the ecosystems that Brad and I have cycled through over the years, from the old Oracle and ATG days to Hybris and SAP, and then moved over. We had a fun little time in Scottsdale a few weeks ago with my
Yeah.
Insight reunion, which is now part of Optimizely, and Brad spent a bunch of time. He'll tell you about his Magento days. So we've hit all the platforms. We just came from a really large Salesforce B2B commerce agency, and that was where Brad and I actually connected up. So, and now we're in the next frontier, which is Shopify.
Amazing, Brad. How did you get into this space yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a few, even though I have more gray, I'm a few years younger.
I
But
shouldn't have said my age. I made a tactical
no,
thought.
I've been doing this for a long time as well. Yeah, no, it's funny to think now working with manufacturers and distributors. My first job actually out of college was working for an aerospace distributor
Mm.
out in New York where I'm from. And while I was trying to be a rock star and actually got my start in sales, cold calling radio stations to get them to try to play my crappy band. But yeah, I in about 2004 I pivoted and got into e-commerce, working on the rewards and loyalty side of the house. I actually spent first 7 or 8 years of my career on the technology side of things, and then decided that I'm a little bit crazy and wanted to go work in an agency where you're two deals away from the best year or two deals away from going out of business at any one given time.
True.
Yeah, so since about 2011, sorry, 2010, 2011-ish, I've been in the agency space. And as Randy said, I'm a convert. I spent the first part of my career really focused on, D2C. So I came up in the Magento ranks, the Demandware ranks, all that stuff, ran business development in an agency called Born Group. I was there even before it was called Born Group, before it sold Tech Mahindra. It was called Pod One.
Mhm.
Did two different stints at IPG. One of their agencies called MRM, and then as Randy said, I became a convert when we worked together at our Salesforce B2B commerce agency, and really, honestly, just completely eye-opening, and having kind of both sides of the picture and understanding that there's transformation and commerce and understanding kind of the full stack, having that sort of marketing side of my world, which is, what's the point of branding and advertising if not to drive a transaction somewhere online, offline, direct, indirect?
Randy, you talked about kind of consistency of strategy and data, understanding data being consistent from those early years through today. I mean, how has strategy transformation changed, or maybe stayed the same, or gone backwards? I can't figure it out from your perspective, and I'm curious about what you guys think about data too.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. In some ways, not a lot has changed in terms of strategy. What I would say that I've seen over time, particularly in the manufacturing and distribution space, is a higher focus on customer and customer experience feeding into strategies. So, early days, it was very much of a business driven strategy. How can I maximize margins, and how can I increase revenue, but very much of a internal lens on that, Justin. And I feel like, even back in 2010 or so, I starting to see some of these manufacturers talk about a chief customer officer, or even just the idea of that. And, when you think about, like, in the manufacturing space, where they're often at least once removed in the value chain from that primary customer or user of their product, what a radical concept to
Yeah,
create this chief customer office, and what does that mean? And so, I've continued to see, like, we evolved in probably 17 or 18, Brad, to, like, heavy focus in strategy projects, like
yep,
customer journey, customer personas,
correct.
segmentation, all of those things. So, that's a key input that I don't think we used back in the day,
Yeah.
so to speak, but much heavier emphasis on that now.
I still have I mean, just got no data to back this up, but I still have a gut feeling that that most manufacturing distributors are really immature when it comes to actually understanding. Like, I think they understand their customer, like where are they going on vacation this summer? I think that's a fair, I think they have deep relationships and understanding of their customers. I don't think they have a good understanding of the customer's journey.
Yeah,
Do you guys
I would,
agree with that, Brad?
yeah, I would agree. And I think, to what we've been talking about is I think the pillars of the strategy are the same. Frankly, I don't think they've changed much. It's what's the experience and what are you trying to do? And I think you're spot on. A lot of these companies for hundreds of years had the luxury of just being the only place you could ever get this random widget thing, whatever you want to call it. So that all they had to do was just make the best damn thing they could and have a recognizable brand and sort of make it semi easy to get what you had. The internet, the Amazon effect, whatever you want to call it, in every possible vertical, people can get these things anywhere. And I think, yeah, really understanding their customers and the touch points. And, even though they've always shopped this way from them, they've always picked up the phone and called someone doing that analysis of custom basics, customer segmentation, customer
Mm.
journeys. Just it's not that complex. And again, we joke all the time that like the two biggest mistakes we see are do nothing or try to do everything all at once, which are both wrong. And I think it's some fairly simple sitting down, understanding who your customers are, putting them into sort of bite-sized chunks, and then actually like thinking about how they want to buy from you versus how you want to sell to them. And I think that's a kind of a subtle but critical nuance.
One of the interesting things, Justin, that I see manufacturers still do to this day is not that they don't know their customer, but they have a biased view of their customer, and it's internally biased
Mm.
by how that customer interacts with their sales and service teams. And so I think that customer understanding the end-to-end customer journey from an unbiased position is something that's of real value if you
Yeah.
undertake these types of digital transformations. I many times have tried to set up strategy projects where we wanted to do customer, direct customer first party interviews, and the client will say something like, well, just talk to our sales team, they know the customers.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
we say, yes, we want to understand the sales team's perspective, but we also want to understand from the customer their perspective as well. And I can remember seeing data that shows that you know brands' perception of themselves does not align with customers' perceptions of the brand.
Yeah.
And like people tend to believe what's right in front of them. So being able to take that broader view is really important from a digital strategy perspective.
Any examples of that? Like, what have you found in differences between what a customer really thinks versus the bias of what we thought about a customer through the eyes of the sales team?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I can remember some distributors that I've worked with that had very large field sales teams, and the internal belief was that the value provided to the customer by the field sales team was a primary value pillar of the brand, and the reality was that 90% of the time the customer wanted to self-service. It wasn't that they didn't find value in their salesperson. It was that they didn't have time to do that face-to-face meeting on a regular
Mhm.
basis. The internal bias of the organization was, this is the model we've always used. This is how we provide white glove service. And this is what the customer wants. When in reality, the customer's behavior has pivoted because they have the same demands on them that everybody else does, and they've grown exponentially over the past few years, and they didn't have time to accept that white glove service.
Yeah. Well, and again, we talked about this concept of, for a long time, you wanted something from a manufacturer or distributor, and there was a way that they wanted to sell it to you. Versus nowadays, people expect to buy something from someone the way that they want to buy it from them. And there's
Hmm.
that may not seem like a big difference, but it is a pretty big difference. And I think having spent as much time as I did in the sort of B2C world, in the retail world, that's a lot more linear, right? You might research something online and go in store and buy it in store. You research online, you buy online. You research in store, you go in store. Whereas with manufacturers and distributors, the funnel and the touch points is way more sort of blown apart in a really good way. And people are going to touch across all these things for different products, for different kinds of purchases. And the smart manufacturers need to have an experience for all of these. It's not just force you to call someone or force you to go self-service or force you to go EDI or force you to email. Like, customers want to shop and transact with you in so many different ways. They want to research with you in different ways. And again, I think the wise companies is where we go back to really doing customer segmentation and being smart about it and prioritizing these things and these features goes a really long way.
I don't know if you remember, Randy. I did this like parody video back in 2018. It's called B2B Commerce in Real Life. It was like this just silly thing. And the video, and one of the lines in the video was, it was the salesperson talking to the customer. Before you tell me what you need, let me show you the things I want to sell you. Like that. It's an exaggeration, but it's so true too, isn't it?
I'm going to say this out of love as an engineer, but that is such a good engineering attitude that I am going to build the feature that nobody asked for.
That nobody asked for. Well, but talk about the balance though, because customers, like, you can't trust customers either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to build the things they need, not just the things they say they need. Like, how do you get to those types of things?
Yeah, and I mean, we see this often in these legacy platforms, that were custom built and have been around for 15 years that are, these manufacturers are sitting on these customer portals. Is somebody sometime asked for this thing and therefore it exists within the portal. No one's using it, but I want to do a migration from my custom portal to packaged e-commerce software, and I'm going to give you a feature list of everything that's there.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think that goes back to partly data, right? What's the financial tie to this feature? So that's one thing. In terms of what customers are asking for and validating that, we never, when we build roadmaps and think about digital strategy, we really think in terms of three pillars always. What the customer needs, what the business outcome is, and what the enablement is for that. So making sure that there's a good balance, Justin, between those three is always critical, right? There's got to be a business outcome tied to it. Otherwise, no matter what the customer needs, there's not a lot of point in investing in it.
Well, and Randy will probably get a chuckle out of this. We've had so many times in the past number of years where we get on a call with someone, the requirements, to your point about the feature, just existed. It's like, we have to have this thing. It's really, really important. We can't do this without it. And we go to scope it and we come back and we say, look, this is really complex because of X, Y, and Z. It's X dollars. And they go, oh, nobody uses that. That's future fatal. We'll get rid of that.
That's so true.
It changes the tune pretty quickly. Yeah.
You guys have used the word agility a couple times. And when I think about doing nothing, a decision about doing nothing versus doing everything, do nothing, most of the time, at least from what I've experienced especially the last 2 years, is do nothing is really tied to, or doing something big like an ERP upgrade that I've been going through. Yet agility used to be an e-commerce thing that we were touting, but now agility seems very difficult in the e-commerce. Like, agility feels like we've got these now massive e-commerce systems, or legacy, as you said, Randy, the word you used, in place. So where does agility fit into this mix in today's technology that's available to us?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of perfectly teed up the reason that Randy and I moved into the space that we're in and joined Domain about 6 months, or a little over 6 months ago. Shopify. We've been following it for years. We were directly competing against it for a long time. Um, and the pace with which it's moving and the ability to, this concept of, people have often said, I'll do nothing because the thing they were trying to do was so big and it was costly, or it was resource heavy, or there was a change management component of it, which there always is. um, the ability to find these bite-sized wins. You made the comment about ERP. I've never once talked to one single company that wasn't in the midst of an ERP upgrade, or they just bought 5 companies and they have 37 ERPs and they're trying to figure out, which is going to be sort of the hierarchy and sunsetted. This idea of giving them the ability to do quick wins. Again, you can't do everything at once and you can't do nothing. And to Randy's earlier comment, helping people actually understand the opportunity cost, or the cost of doing nothing, is actually much higher than most people think. They don't realize the cost to serve, basically margin that they're burning. So again, loving the fact that tools like Shopify, tools that we use heavily at Domain, like Klaviyo or Klaviyo, however you want to pronounce it, um, give you the ability to start small and grow really big. And start with a division, start with a small phase, start with a region, and actually prove out results. Makes it a lot easier to go to the CFO, and ask for ask for additional funding, or get more attention internally, if you will.
I think the maturity of, I'll say iPaaS solutions, and then generally middle office solutions too, Justin, is critical in the ability to maintain agility. So, one of the things is, we used to have all these ERP monoliths, right, that existed. And I mean, you just look at how all the early days commerce platforms got gobbled up by ERP platforms.
Right.
Tells you that perfectly. And the problem is, number one, doing anything in your ERP is extremely time consuming and expensive, right? And then number two, very few enterprise companies have a single ERP instance that they're running off of, through whether it's through M&A or just sales orgs that are separate, whatever it is. They have a fragmented back office. There's almost no company that I've walked into that doesn't have a fragmented back office, and that's a problem. Then you look at all of these different customer experiences on the front end that I might need to service when I look across quote to cash, order to cash flows, you know, B2B, B to little b, B2B to C, you name it, right? And sales channels and service channels on the customer experience side. Like, having that middle layer where I can store and aggregate master data and move it where it needs to go is just critical for companies. And there's lots of ways to do that. Again, we have mature iPaaS solutions now. We have, robust CRM solutions. We have robust marketing automation solutions. We have PIMs. So there's lots of ways to manage that data in the middle office, but that's where it's accessible, but also
Yeah,
where you can aggregate these fragmented back offices. And I think that's where agility really comes into play.
yeah, it's a great point, Randy.
You mentioned that, some of that, doing something, tying it to financial levers. Where are companies tying it to new revenue today? Like, when you're
Yeah.
talking to a CFO, where are the opportunities? People are saying we can tie this commerce initiative to new revenue that would be outside of those large, projects that might be going on internally that are just kind of forward facing.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I'm really interested in right now are all of these manufacturers, and then sort of the redistributors that service product lines that go to the trades. I think that's a really interesting place where, like, there is a huge opportunity through e-commerce to build out direct channels to the trades for these companies that maybe right now they're selling through big box, retail, they're selling through local distribution and supply houses, and gathering that is a significant chance to go capture market share, open a new revenue stream at a higher margin than what your typical, distribution or manufacturing wholesale business might be at. So that's just like one example, Justin, of where
Yeah.
I see this huge opportunity. If you're in any line of industrial or building materials, like I think there's just a massive opportunity there from a commerce perspective. And I think, back to Brad's commentary earlier about, how excited we are of the Shopify ecosystem, it is just tailor made to launch those types of experiences, get key learnings, adapt, but do them in a cost effective way.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, when you get the technology stack sort of semi in order, and you actually really understand where you can reduce human effort and focus those talented people on other things. Like we've talked to so many companies over the years when we'll sit and we'll talk to their head of sales or whatever, say, what's your new customer acquisition strategy? And they'll say 9 times out of 10, they'll say, well, we go to 165 trade shows a year and we set up a table, and whoever comes up, that's who we sell to. And it's like there's no concept of, is this customer worth $10 million for us or $10,000 to us? And there's not a lot of, because again, it takes so much energy to acquire or retain the customers they have. When you actually open that up, you can start. We've worked with companies before where they're like, hey, look, I'm a manufacturer and I have distribution partners in these markets, but I actually don't sell in this market because I don't have a distributor there. Well, great. Let's spin up a site for you. Let's have this be virtual only there. It's sort of better than nothing, right? All these different, when you kind of really understand that and you build the system. And again, with Shopify having the ability to spin up storefronts in different regions, or back to the example, if they still feel really strongly about doing the trade shows, like set up a little experience for the sales rep to be taking orders instead of
Yeah.
taking it on a penciler, which is kind of crazy. So again, it's this concept of when Randy talks about freeing up that sort of middle office, freeing up the front end and understanding the customers, you can really have a much better view of what's out there for you and actually go tackle them.
I have a new outline for a book I've written in the first couple of chapters, and the premise of the book is not that e-commerce is diminishing. It's actually that it's increasing.
Yeah.
But the differentiator on top of that is as more of that chunk goes digital and with automation, the slice on top of that becomes even more critical. That's where so much margin can be generated by the person that knows how to use the digital tools.
Mm-hmm.
The tools you just talked about, Brad, be able to leverage the tools they have available to them, whether it's CRM and commerce tools built for them, not necessarily for the customer, but built for the salespeople, that layer becomes building commerce and tools for the salespeople to make them smarter becomes the new kind of evolution of where commerce is going.
I love a good analogy. It's like Batman, right? Bruce Wayne was doing most of the stuff, but he needed his tool belt and a suit.
Yeah, that's right.
Is all of his tools and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree. It's an accelerant. It's not a replacement in many cases. But with that being said, there are certain customers that, we've talked to a lot of companies where they're like, I don't sell to the small people, these onesie twosies. It's not worth it for us because it takes a sales rep. And it's like, well, if you have a self-service commerce site, like you can.
That's right.
We're doing that with a bunch of different manufacturers and distributors now. Is actually setting up essentially a D2C, but like a prosumer, right? For a client that just wants to buy this welding tool, this fitting, this bottle of lubricant for roofing tiles or whatever it might be, and differentiating from getting an account, etc. So
it's interesting, Justin, when you talk about the importance of this consultative seller. One of the things that I've seen over the years, and I'm going to go back to this, like anybody who services the trades, is this proliferation of education and training centers that are actually run by manufacturers. We were talking to a robotics company a few weeks ago, and they actually have an education division that's supposed to get their product into universities so that robotics students are trained on their
robot
on their platform, not on somebody else's. seen the same thing in welding, for
Yeah.
example. But, then to support that education piece, you do have to have that technical sales rep that can be out in the field and tell you how to, here's the alloy that you need and your welding wire to weld
Hmm.
this underwater pipeline, and here's the bead size that you need,
Yeah.
and really really support from that perspective. It's not like how many feet of wire do I need. It's like,
Mm.
how do I actually use this, and what is the exact right product?
Yeah.
Because these are crafts. They're not just jobs. Some of these trades are true crafts people that
Yep.
they take pride in their job, but they also their ability to execute their job is really important.
Well, and Randy, it's a good point too, because it's, again, we talked about the customer journey. A lot of people think about the customer journey with me as the person they're buying from. But if you actually brought it out, you really understand the nuances of that. I mean, Randy, how many times have we seen companies that are selling to they have a long list of mom and pop kind of retail shops that they're selling stuff to, and they're still trying to call them on the phone and place orders when this person who they're selling to is running the shop, and they want to place their order at midnight or at 2 in the morning or on Sunday, right? They don't have time for you to come visit them or do this sort of old school ways. And it's thinking about, what can I do? What can I offer in addition to just selling them what they need, to actually help them do their job better,
Do their
right?
job.
They'll be more loyal. And then you start to expand out, and what other things, and you start to get into things like marketplaces and things like that. If it's like, if I have that customer relationship, not just to buy this widget or tool from me, it's pretty powerful.
Well, I mean, I think it comes back to segmentation, where we started at, right? In the customer journey of, I mean, that mom and pop has a different customer journey than the others. I had
Correct.
a thought, I wrote it down when you guys were talking about it. I had a thought on customer journeys too, that what I've heard this statement made, that often when you talk to a customer, they don't want to say anything negative about, they don't tell the truth about what they want because they don't want to hurt their sales guy, because they have a because of that
Mm.
relationship that we tout as so important, which is so
Yep.
amazing, right? They don't want to say, I'd rather actually do 90% of my ordering
Yeah.
Hmm.
on my own, because they don't want to hurt Bob, because
Yeah. Yeah.
Bob's a friend, right? They meet at Max's pub on, Fridays with Bob.
Well, I think it's interesting, and I'll just say that I've worked with some really amazing UX people through the years that I think are really good at soliciting unbiased information in
Oh yeah,
a benign way, right? So that you're not hurting Bob, the sales guy.
that's right.
So I think like many things, there's an art and a science to that. It's just like,
Hmm.
I always laugh when they write these referendums that they put on ballots. They write them in such ways that whoever put it on the ballot has a way that they want you to vote. Like, you know, who doesn't
Yeah.
want free puppies and food and everything else? And it's the same with talking to customers. You can bias the information, or you can use techniques to get unbiased information. So I think you're spot on though, Justin. It's hard. It's definitely an art that I won't claim to be an expert in.
Well, and that's where a lot of times we'll try to get access to customer service reps. A lot of times we're talking to the executives who are getting a filtered version, and that's fine. We want that. They need to be the ones helping with the vision. But the people that are getting the raw, like, what went wrong, what went right in this transaction, and obviously not to like nerd out on it, but like, it's a cool part about AI now is being able to hook up to, if they have a customer service tool, be able to call through millions and millions of data points and actually get out real actionable things.
Just not aware.
Yeah, and how to evolve it. Yeah.
Mm. Let's talk about Domain a little bit. So you guys both joined. I think the press release is in May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, when did you
Yeah.
guys? When did you guys, like? How
Yeah.
did
We
you
both,
end up
we,
at
we
Domain?
both, yeah, we both joined in May. And it's got kind of a cool backstory. As I said, Randy and I linked up in 2019 at Shift 7 Digital and had an incredible run. And I actually left after we exited that to Merkle. I went back to MRM for a bit. Randy and I remained close and talked almost every day. And an opportunity came up earlier this year for me to make a move. And Randy and I started talking, and we formulated this idea. We've had this thesis for a while that there was a massive hole in the ecosystem for true B2B digital transformation, right? Not just standing up Shopify, but actually like
That's right.
embedding it and building it into the fabric of a company in all these different dynamic ways, setting up new markets, understanding customers, etc. And once upon a time, I mentioned earlier, I used to run business development for an agency called Born Group a long time ago. And when I was there, I had the good fortune of working with two incredible people, Joe Tatarski and Olivia Yuan. We worked together for about 4 years, and I actually once upon a time pitched a fine gentleman named Mark Oban when he was at Brooks Brothers, and I've remained friends with all of them over the years. They started an agency called Tomorrow years ago. That was Shopify, and a few years ago, they were merged together. They were acquired by a PE firm and merged together with another agency called Half Helix, and created Domaine. And fast forward to today, or when we joined, Domain is the largest independent Shopify agency in the world. Over 300 people, well over 50% are certified Shopify developers. And they had done quite a bit of B2B, but sort of in line with working with CPG, fashion, beauty brands. Obviously, much of those companies, their revenue comes from that. But as you were kind of exactly.
We call it, there's little B2B, and then there's big B2B.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, there's some big B2B in there too, but I hear you.
Yeah.
As Randy and I were kind of formulating this, we took this thesis to market, as we jokingly called it, Brandy Brandler Industries. And we started talking to a bunch of people. We looked to maybe acquire something. We looked to start something on our own. And always kind of at the beginning of it, we're like, oh, it'd be really cool if we to do something like this. And we had in one of our decks, we had Domain in there. And the idea came about to sort of build this within the walls of something that basically had everything we didn't have or didn't need to build. And I reached out to Marco, and kind of there were some casual conversations. Randy and I started talking to Peter, our CEO, and Dave, our CFO, and I had known Mac, the CRO, for a long time, and we got to meet Max, who's our CTO. And honestly, from the beginning, it was just a perfect fit. It was everything. Domain had already built everything that we didn't have. And we really brought that, as you call it, the big B2B expertise in. And it was, the timing has been great because it's been a big investment area for Shopify, and there's a gap in the ecosystem, but don't tell too many other people about it. But yeah, it's a cool journey of how we got here, and it's been great to reconnect. And even though Randy and I talked every single day when we weren't working together, it was an exciting thing to come in and build this and take a lot of what we've built and learned in other ecosystems and apply it, because you kind of realize it looks and feels very similar to what happened with Hybris, what happened with Domain, what happened with Magento, but it's going way faster and way bigger.
If you kind of think about where you're focused, I know you do a lot of different B2B, but are you focused mostly on manufacturers or distributors? What have you seen the majority of your growth from?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty nice mix, Justin, of both manufacturers and distributors. Probably right now, I see the biggest opportunity in the regional distribution space for Shopify. And then there's some pretty interesting use cases within what I call enterprise manufacturing as well, that it's really well built for. So, I think we're focused across industries. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, obviously our background and our primary purpose is around these manufacturers and distributors. And I think we've got a pretty nice mix of both within there.
Are you guys a full service? Do you classify yourself as an agency? How do you classify yourself?
Yeah, Domaine is a full service agency. So we've
UX,
got
all the
UX strategy, I mean, worked with some of the most well-known consumer brands in the world to build just unbelievably beautiful experiences, and it's really fun to take that kind of talent and to then reposition it and help them to think in terms of the pragmatic nature that often exists within B2B commerce. But Shopify's built the natives at this point to allow for pretty robust B2B capabilities, and we're taking advantage of it. And I'll tell you, when we were working in other ecosystems, we were definitely starting to see Shopify move into this space. So excited to be on the inside now.
So you guys mentioned and talk about digital transformation
Mhm.
so often, and I would imagine your work while centered around Shopify, is bigger within your customers than that,
Mhm.
an implementation of a technology.
Mhm.
Talk about how you guys think of digital transformation. If you're talking to a regional distributor, that's a great example. How do you think about that?
Well, the first thing that I always want to know is what their corporate strategy is. I mean, a lot of these distributors, these regional distributors right now are PE backed, and they're running these, aggregation plays where they're
Yep.
they're trying to build scale through M&A activity. Maybe they've got some funding to try and hit some new markets. We're certainly seeing some that are regional in terms of branches that are looking to have a national footprint for digital, things like that, Justin. So the first thing that I want to understand is what your corporate strategy is. Once we can align on that, then we can start talking about where the gaps are in your digital architecture, and where you can start to make some investments. And again, I'm a big believer in this idea of having your middle office be really important in most of these areas. But our bread and butter is then on the front office, the customer experience
Explain
side of things.
explain the middle office. Like explain that concept. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so where your internal business users are really working your internal commercial business users are really working. So your sales teams, your customer service teams, your product management teams or merchandisers, those kinds of people. So again, like when I think about middle office applications, I generally think in terms of CRM, primarily CRM and PIM as the big ones. Obviously, a lot of companies have pricing engines, they have quoting tools that are integrated into those things. But sort of non-customer facing tools, I would say, but
Yep.
your commercial teams are working in.
Well, guys, I appreciate your time. It's been amazing. First of all, I love catching up with old friends, Randy. So appreciate that. But definitely want to do a couple more of these. There's a couple topics I know we've queued up for the future. So appreciate you guys being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. We
Yeah,
could do this
sure.
all day, clearly.
Manufacturers, distributors, leaders in the zone. If you're building B2B, this the podcast throne. The industry's heartbeat, we're setting the tone. Turn insights to actions, it's how empires are grown. We're talking change management, breaking resistance. Strategies so sharp, they redefine persistence. Customer adoption, it's more than retention. It's building a movement, commanding attention. It's the B2B e-commerce show, where the vision is clear and the strategies glow. From the top of the globe, where the pros who know turn the volume up loud, it's time to grow. We bring news, big topics, insights to spark. From the boardroom's glow to the warehouse dark. Digital transformations, the path we're paving, helping you lead through the change you're facing. This is more than a podcast, it's the industry's voice, giving you the tools to make the right choice. No fluff, just facts, no hype, just action. The show where solutions are more than a fraction. It's the B2B e-commerce show, where the vision is clear and the strategies glow. From the top of the globe, where the pros who know turn the volume up loud, it's time to grow.
This is your guide to the digital race. Practical advice, no time to waste. So tune in, gear up, and let's own the space. It's the B2B e-commerce show, the industry's base.